So if you caught my upload from earlier today, which was the weekly hot takes video, I'll leave it linked in the description in case you missed it. But one of the takes was in regards to the Bulls trading for Nikola Vucevic. And I've been meaning to create a dedicated video on this topic since as we get closer to the trade deadline, there are more and more rumors of who the Bulls should be pursuing in a trade. Now, the one that I find most intriguing is Andre Drummond, but trading for Vucevic is also an interesting one as well, and that's what we'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. I hope you're all doing well. So I covered a little bit of this in the hot takes video on trading for Vucevic, and I'll go into a little more depth, but some of it might be a little repetitive. So Nikola Vucevic, as I'm sure most people can agree, is arguably one of the best centers in the league. Not the best, but one of the best. And he's actually having one of the best seasons of his career at the age of 30. He's averaging 23.7 points per game, 11.4 rebounds. He's even passing the ball well for a big man at 3.4 assists. His defensive efficiency has gone down a little bit, although he was never really known for being a stellar defender. But he's shooting the three ball better than he ever has at 43% on the most three-point attempts he has in his career at 6.2 per game. So he's a great player, okay? And he's been a great player throughout most of his career. He was selected to the All-Star game just a couple years back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't make it again this season. The problem for Vucevic is he's playing on a bad team that lacks a bit of a direction on where they want to go. They made it to the playoffs last season as an 8 seed. They've got some nice young pieces, but some of them have been struggling with injuries. And given, Vucevic's age at 30, he's likely going to want a change of scenery to play on a winning team before he starts to exit his prime. And I'm sure the Magic also see that as well. Now, unlike Andre Drummond or Blake Griffin, the Magic have not indicated that Vucevic is being made available for a trade. But given the fact that they're likely going to start heading into rebuild mode rather than just remain at the mediocrity stage of the league, it would likely make more sense for them to trade their star big man for some younger assets to build for the future. Now, before I go any further, I will say up front that I think it's unlikely the Bulls are going to make a trade for Vucevic. And this is really on both sides, in that likely it would not work out both for the Magic and the Bulls. And I'll start with the Bulls on why it likely won't make sense and then discuss the Magic. First of all, what I will say is I like the idea of trading for Vucevic as a Bulls fan. I would love to see this happen, but there are a couple problems that make this trade complicated and why I think the Bulls are unlikely to trade for him. Now, I mentioned this in the hot takes video, but the first problem is he's 30 years old, so he doesn't really fit the Bulls' timeline for contention. He's okay on defense, but doesn't really excel on that level. And again, the Bulls need defense more than anything right now. A stretch big man we already have in Lauri Markkanen, who is also 7 years younger. Vucevic is also on a very large contract that doesn't expire until 2023. He's on the second year of a 4-year, $100 million contract. It's not a bad contract compared to others, but it's still substantial for someone of his age. Now, the other thing in trading for Vucevic, you're probably going to have to give up a lot for him because not only is he a great player and having a great season, so his trade value is high, the question is, do the Bulls want to mortgage their future a bit in getting him? Because the Magic are going to want younger assets in exchange for Vucevic if they're heading in the direction of rebuilding. Now, contenders, teams that are competing for a title, they're going to be able to offer more in terms of giving up younger assets or picks. So they're going to be more willing to offer that, right? If they're in win now mode and he can really put them over the edge, they're going to be able to offer substantial packages. So the Bulls would be competing with those strong trade offers for Vucevic. I honestly think it would likely take the Bulls trading one of Lauri Markkanen or Wendell, Otto Porter to make the money work, Gafford, and a Bulls first-round pick. And I think at that point you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to give up those kind of assets who still haven't entered into their prime? A first-round pick that could prove to be very valuable, especially if the Bulls fall into the lottery. And all of that for a 30-year-old big man who is a great player, but likely will start declining in just a few short seasons. I think that's the question that the front office has to really think about and whether that makes sense. And like I said, the Bulls really, really need to be focusing on defense when considering trades or even going into the offseason for free agency targets. We are severely lacking that department. It's good to have Wendell back as he's a great defender, but it's still not enough. And Vucevic, as great as he is, doesn't really move the needle from a defensive perspective. Now, if the Bulls don't have to give up that much for him, maybe the Magic aren't getting that great of offers and are realizing they don't have a ton of leverage, then yeah, absolutely pull the trigger in getting Vucevic. If it was a straight up trade for Wendell, that would never happen, but yeah, you would go for that. Or if they just wanted our first round pick for this upcoming draft, again, wouldn't happen, but if it did, then of course you make that trade. I think, that's the tricky thing when assessing who the Bulls should be trading for. And I know a lot of you ask me in the comments, would you trade for X player? And my thought is always, well, it really depends. How much are we giving up for said player? Because there's always a trade scenario for every player if it turns out to be a net positive for the Bulls, but some of those trades are likely not going to be realistic for the other side. The other thing I will add, though, is trading for Vucevic, despite the fact that he's a bit older, and do you really want to give up younger assets for him when you're kind of still building this team? But if you have a conviction that by bringing in a guy like Vucevic to put him alongside Lavine and Patrick Williams, and that making a move like that is going to attract some big name free agents this offseason or the following offseason, say maybe Kawhi Leonard, then yes, it's worth it. If you think that Vucevic is going to allow you to bring in quality big name free agents and make Chicago a free agency destination, then yes, it's worth giving up some of these younger assets that we currently have. But realistically speaking, does acquiring Vucevic via a trade make the Bulls an attractive free agency destination? I mean, more so than they are now, but I don't know if Vucevic really has that kind of pull to bring in someone like Kawhi, who we all know is really the only big name left in the 2020 free agency class. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Does this make sense for the Bulls to try and trade for Vucevic when weighing all of these pros and cons? Does it help the Bulls in the long term and what they're trying to build for? Let me know in the comments. The Bulls will be taking on the Pistons tonight. That's right, the Pistons. They were initially scheduled to take on the Hornets in Charlotte, but the season is crazy with the pandemic, so the Bulls are now actually going to be playing the Pistons in Chicago. I'll have another live group chat here on the channel. We're getting more and more people in there chatting during the game, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. We also have a group chat on the Discord server as well. Be sure to subscribe, guys, if you're a Bulls fan and you like daily Bulls content. Thanks again, as always, for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one.